The morning sun rose over Seoul like any other day. Children walked to school. Workers filled the trains. Street vendors sold hot food on busy corners. Nobody looked up at the sky. Nobody saw the shadows growing larger above the clouds. General Park sat in his office in Geneva, reading reports about mining operations on Mars. He was 58 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the Mars insurrection 15 years ago. He thought those would be the last battles of his life. He was wrong. 10,000 kilometers above Earth, Captain guided her ship through the darkness between Luna Base and the orbital stations. She was young for a captain, only 32, but she had earned her rank through skill and courage. Her crew respected her. Her enemies feared her. Today, she was just running a simple patrol. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. That changed at exactly 9:47 in the morning. The first warning came from the deep space sensors near Jupiter. Something was coming. Something big. The signals showed 12 massive objects moving faster than anything humans had ever built. They crossed the distance from Jupiter to Earth in less than 3 hours. By the time the defense networks understood what was happening, the alien fleet had already entered Earth's orbit. Admiral watched the images on his screen and felt his blood turn cold. The ships were enormous. Each one was larger than a city. They hung in the sky like dark mountains, blocking out the sun. Their hulls were black and smooth, covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. "What are they?" someone asked. Nobody answered. Nobody knew. The United Defense Force sent greeting signals. They transmitted messages of peace in every human language. They sent mathematical patterns, musical compositions, images of Earth and its people. They tried everything they could think of to show that humanity meant no harm. The alien fleet did not respond. For 6 hours, the massive ships simply waited. People around the world looked up at the sky with fear and wonder. Some prayed. Some celebrated, believing this was the moment humanity would join a greater civilization. Some ran to hide. At 4:23 in the afternoon, the largest ship moved. It positioned itself directly above the Korean peninsula. A panel on its underside opened, revealing something that pulsed with terrible light. Captain saw it happen from her ship near the moon. She watched through her sensors as a beam of pure energy shot down from the alien vessel. It struck Seoul with the force of a dying star. The city disappeared. 8 million people died in less than 3 seconds. The blast created a crater 30 kilometers wide. The shockwave flattened everything for 100 kilometers in every direction. The heat turned sand into glass and stone into dust. Where Seoul had stood for 600 years, there was now only a burning wound in the earth. Captain screamed. Her younger brother had lived in Seoul. He was 25 years old. He was a teacher. He loved to cook. Now he was gone. Now he was nothing but ash floating in a poisoned sky. Around the world, people watched in horror. The broadcasts showed the destruction again and again. The crater, the fires, the silence where a great city used to be. General Park received the news in his bunker. An aide handed him the report with shaking hands. He read it once. He read it twice. He set the paper down on his desk and stared at the wall. His daughter had been visiting Seoul. She was 7 years old. She had gone to see her grandmother. She was supposed to come home next week. For 3 minutes, the general said nothing. His officers waited. Some of them were crying. Some were too shocked to feel anything at all. When General Park finally spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. "Begin recording," he said. "I want them to hear every word." The transmission was sent on every frequency humanity could produce. It was aimed at the alien fleet above Earth. It was spoken in English, but translators would later convert it into 300 languages. It would become the most famous speech in human history. "This message is for the ones who attacked our world," General Park said. "You came to our home without warning. You destroyed one of our cities without cause. You killed 8 million of our people, including children, including the innocent, including my own daughter." He paused, his hands were steady, his eyes were dry. "You believe this makes you powerful. You believe we will bow down and surrender. You believe we are weak because we did not see you coming. You are wrong." In her ship near the moon, Captain listened. Tears ran down her face, but her jaw was set with determination. "You struck Earth first," the general continued. "You drew first blood, you started this war. Now we will finish it. We are coming for you, not to negotiate, not to beg for peace. We are coming to show you what happens when you attack humanity." Admiral listened from the orbital command station. Around him, officers who had been weeping moments ago now stood. "You think you know what we are capable of. You know nothing. You have seen us at peace. You have never seen us at war, but you will. I promise you, on the ashes of our dead, you will." The general leaned closer to the camera. "You should have left us alone. You should have passed us by, but you did not. You woke something that should have stayed sleeping. And now you will learn why that was the worst mistake your empire has ever made." He stood up straight. "This is General Park of the United Earth Defense Force. To whoever commands that fleet, run home. Tell your masters what you did today. Tell them what is coming. Tell them Earth remembers, and Earth will never forgive." The transmission ended. The war had begun. 6 months passed after the burning of Seoul. The alien fleet, which humanity now called the Empire, had surrounded Earth with a wall of ships. Nothing could enter. Nothing could leave. The believed hunger and despair would break the humans within a year. They waited for the surrender that they were certain would come. They did not understand what was happening beneath the surface. Deep under the mountains of Switzerland, Doctor had not slept in 4 days. Her laboratory was cold and filled with the hum of machines. Pieces of technology lay on her tables, recovered from fragments that had fallen during the Seoul attack. She studied them with red eyes and trembling hands. Her parents had died in Seoul. She had spoken to her mother that morning, just hours before the strike. They had argued about something small and stupid. She could not even remember what it was. Now she would never have the chance to apologize. That guilt drove her forward. That pain kept her awake. "It is impossible," her assistant said, looking at the data. "They are centuries ahead of us. We cannot catch up in 6 months." Doctor shook her head. "They built their technology over 1,000 years. They improved it slowly, step by step. They never had to fight for survival. They never had to innovate under pressure." She picked up a piece of alien metal. "We have 6 months. That is enough." Around the world, similar scenes played out. Factories that had made cars now made weapons. Shipyards that had built cargo vessels now built warships. Scientists who had studied medicine now studied warfare. Engineers who had designed buildings now designed armor. For the first time in human history, every nation worked toward the same goal. Old enemies shared secrets. Old borders meant nothing. The species that had spent centuries fighting itself now had a common enemy, and that enemy had made a terrible mistake. Lieutenant Han stood in a training facility in the Australian desert. Around her, 500 soldiers ran through combat exercises. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons they had only dreamed of 6 months ago. They were training for something that had never been done before, boarding an enemy ship in space. Han was 27 years old. Before the attack, she had been preparing to leave the military. She had wanted to become a farmer, to live a quiet life growing food. Seoul had changed everything. "You are the first orbital drop shock troops," she told her soldiers. "When we attack, you will be the first through the door. You will fight in zero gravity. You will fight in darkness. You will fight against enemies who are bigger and stronger than you." She looked at their faces. Some were scared, all were determined. "They think we are weak," she continued. "They think we are soft. They have never fought a human who has nothing left to lose. Show them what that means." The soldiers raised their fists. From Earth with fury, they shouted. In orbit around the moon, Captain commanded a secret fleet. The ships were small and fast, built in hidden factories on the far side of Luna. They were painted black to blend with the darkness of space. Their engines ran silent. Their weapons were new, based on doctors' research. Had not smiled since Sol. Her face had become hard, her eyes cold. She spoke rarely, and when she did, her voice was flat and empty. But her crew knew that behind that mask was a fire that would never go out. "Report," she said to her communications officer. "The patrol is on schedule. They pass through Sector 7 every 6 hours. They do not change their route." Nodded, though were arrogant. They followed the same patterns every day. They did not expect resistance. They did not expect anything at all. "We move tonight," she said. 3 ships, fast strike. Hit them before they know we are there." Her second officer looked worried. "We are not ready. We have not finished testing the new weapons." "We will test them on the enemy," stood up. "My brother died because we were not ready. We will never be unready again." That night her squadron slipped through the darkness. They found the patrol exactly where they expected. 3 enemy vessels, each one 10 times the size of a human ship. The sensors did not detect them until it was too late. The battle lasted 4 minutes. The new weapons worked better than anyone had hoped. 2 ships were destroyed. The third tried to run but was disabled by a precise strike to its engines. 32 soldiers were killed. Not a single human died. High Commander received the report on his flagship. He read it 3 times, certain there was a mistake. The primitives had fought back. The primitives had won. That was not supposed to happen. He dismissed the report as an accident, a lucky strike, nothing more. In her bunker beneath the Swiss mountains, Doctor smiled for the first time in 6 months. She had watched the battle data come in. Her weapons had worked. Her theories had been correct. "Phase 1 is complete," she told General Park over the secure channel. "We are ready for Phase 2. The general nodded. His face was tired, but his eyes were alive with something that had been missing since Sol. Hope. He stood before the underground assembly of world leaders. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists filled the room. They had come from every corner of Earth, united by tragedy, bound by purpose. "They gave us 6 months to surrender," General Park said. "We used those 6 months to prepare. They think we are beaten. They think we are dying. They are wrong." He pointed upward toward the sky they could not see but all remembered. "In 2 weeks we attack, not to survive, to win, not to defend, to conquer. They wanted a war. Now they are going to get one." The room erupted in applause. Outside, the factories continued their work. The ships continued to grow. The soldiers continued to train. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was angry. 1 year after the burning of Sol, humanity struck back. The attack began at 3 in the morning, Earth Standard Time. 300 human warships emerged from the shadows of Jupiter's moons. They had hidden there for months, waiting in the cold darkness, running silent, invisible to sensors. Now they moved as one, a fleet of vengeance racing toward Earth. Commander O stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Vengeful Dawn. He was 45 years old, tall and broad, with a face that seemed made for smiling. But he had not smiled in a year. Not since his wife and children had died on a transport ship that the destroyed for sport. "All ships report ready," his communications officer said. "Good." Commander O looked at the tactical display. The blockade was a ring of 70 warships surrounding Earth. Each one was massive and powerful. The humans were outnumbered and, on paper, they had no chance. But paper did not know what humans could do when they were fighting for their home. "Signal all ships," Commander O said. "Today we show them who we are. Today we make them bleed. Today they learn that attacking Earth was the last mistake they will ever make." The fleet acknowledged. 300 ships accelerated to attack speed. The stars blurred around them. The battle was about to begin. High Commander was eating his evening meal when the alarm sounded. He looked up, annoyed. Another drill, he assumed. His officers enjoyed keeping the crew sharp even though there was no need. The primitives were beaten. They had no fleet. They had no hope. Then his tactical officer screamed, "Commander, contacts. 300 human vessels incoming." Dropped his food. "That is impossible. They have no ships. They have nothing." "They are here, Commander. They are attacking." Ran to the command deck. The display showed a swarm of human ships cutting through space at impossible speed. They were small and strange, unlike any design he had seen before, and they were firing. The first ship exploded before its crew understood what was happening. Then another. Then 3 more. The human weapons burned through shields that should have held for hours. The human ships moved in patterns that targeting computers could not predict. "Return fire," shouted, "destroy them." The fleet responded, but the humans were already among them. The battle became chaos. Ships twisted through the void, firing at point-blank range. Explosions lit up the darkness like dying stars. On the vengeful dawn, Commander O directed the battle with cold precision. He saw ships die on both sides. He watched friends disappear in flashes of light. He felt nothing. There would be time for grief later. Now there was only the fight. "Drop teams are in position," his tactical officer reported. "Launch them." Across the fleet, hundreds of small pods ejected from human carriers. They shot toward ships like metal seeds, carrying soldiers who had trained for this moment for months. Corporal Shin was in the first wave. She was 29 years old. Before the war, she had been a school teacher. She had taught children to read and write and dream of the future. Now she taught them something different. She taught them to survive. Her drop pod slammed into the hull of a destroyer. The metal screamed as cutting torches burned through the enemy armor. Then the hatch blew open and she was inside. The corridor was dark and hot. Strange symbols glowed on the walls. The air smelled wrong, like burning metal and something organic she could not identify. She did not care. She raised her weapon and moved forward. The first soldier came around the corner and froze when it saw her. It was tall, almost 3 meters, with 4 arms and skin like gray stone. Its eyes were huge and black. It opened its mouth to shout a warning. Shin shot it in the face. More came. She killed them too. Her squad moved with her, room by room, deck by deck. They had trained for this. They had dreamed of this. They were stronger and bigger, but they had never faced an enemy like this. They had never fought humans who had lost everything and feared nothing. In one corridor, her rifle failed. An officer charged her, its 4 arms reaching for her throat. She dropped the useless weapon, pulled her combat knife, and met its charge. The fight lasted 8 seconds. She was faster. She was desperate. She won. The officer fell, her knife buried in its neck. She pulled the blade free and kept moving. Captain commanded the fighter squadrons. Her ship danced through the battle, weaving between explosions and enemy fire. She lost pilots with every minute. Friends she had trained with disappeared in silence. There was no time to mourn. There was only the mission. "All drop teams are away," her tactical officer reported. "Recovery in 20 minutes. "We hold the line until they are safe," said. "Every team comes home." She did not say what everyone knew. Some of them would not come home. Some of them were already gone. But the ones who survived would carry the memory of those who fell. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the blockade was broken. 17 enemy ships were destroyed. 7 more were captured. Humanity had lost 42 vessels and 12,000 lives. It was a price paid in blood and grief and fire. But it was a victory. On a damaged ship, Sub-Commander survived the battle by hiding in a cargo bay. She was young for an officer, and she had always questioned the war. Now, surrounded by the bodies of her crew, she understood something terrible. The Empire had made an enemy it could not defeat. She sent a secret report to the Imperial Council. We have underestimated them. They do not surrender. They do not break. They adapt and learn and hate. We must destroy them completely or withdraw entirely. There is no middle path. High Commander dismissed her report as the words of a coward. General Park watched the battle data from his bunker on Earth. When the final numbers came in, he allowed himself to feel something he had forgotten how to feel: pride, hope, determination. He recorded a second message to the Empire. "That was for Seoul," he said. "We are just getting started." Across the human worlds, people celebrated. They cried and laughed and held each other. They had been told they were beaten. They had been told they had no chance, but they had fought back. They had won. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity believed it could win. 3 years of war had changed everything. Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Soul's Memory, and looked at the stars. Once, those stars had seemed peaceful and distant. Now they were a battlefield. Now they were stained with the blood of millions. She had changed too. The young captain who had screamed when Seoul burned was gone. In her place stood a commander who had fought in 30 major battles and won 28 of them. Her hair had streaks of gray now. Her face had lines that had not been there before, but her eyes were the same: cold, determined, unforgiving. "Admiral, the Mars orbital stations report all ships ready," her communications officer said. "Good, we launch for Europa at dawn." The human fleet had grown strong. The factories never stopped. The shipyards never rested. What had started as 300 ships was now 3,000. What had been desperation was now determination. The outer colonies that they had captured were being taken back, one by one. Mars had been first, then the stations around Jupiter. Now Europa was waiting, the last major base in the Sol system. After that, humanity would do something that had once seemed impossible. They would take the war to the enemy's home. Doctor had made that possible. In her laboratory, now a massive facility deep beneath the lunar surface, she had achieved the impossible. The fold drive sat before her, a machine that could bend space itself. With it, human ships could travel between stars in hours instead of years. They could strike anywhere in the galaxy. They could reach the heart of the Empire itself. "The test flight was successful," she told General Park over the secure channel. "The ship arrived at Alpha and returned in less than 6 hours. The crew reported no problems." The general nodded. He was 71 now, old and tired but still unbroken. He had refused to rest while the war continued. He had said he would sleep when it was over. "How soon can we begin full production?" he asked. 6 months, maybe less if we push the factories harder." "Push them harder." Colonel Han had no time for meetings or reports. She was on the ground, leading her soldiers through the tunnels beneath Europa's ice. They had built a fortress there, a network of caves and bunkers that housed 10,000 enemy soldiers. Her mission was to take it. Her orbital drop shock troops had become legends. They called them the ghosts from below. They appeared without warning, struck without mercy, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Han had killed more enemies than she could count. She had lost more friends than she wanted to remember. Today she was losing more. "Sergeant Park is down," someone shouted. "Medical team." Han did not stop moving. She could not afford to stop. Every second she hesitated, more of her people died. She raised her weapon and kept fighting. The defenders were desperate. They knew what would happen if they lost this base. They knew the humans were not taking prisoners anymore. Too many massacres on both sides had made mercy impossible. This was a war of survival now. One species would win, one would fall. An explosion rocked the tunnel. Han was thrown against the wall, her ears rang, her vision blurred, but she got up. She always got up. "Push forward," she screamed. "For Earth, for everyone they killed." Her soldiers pushed forward, room by room, tunnel by tunnel, body by body. By the end of the day, the fortress was silent. 2,000 human soldiers had died taking it. 8,000 had died defending it. Han walked through the ruins and felt nothing. The war had taken her ability to feel. Maybe it would come back someday. Maybe it would not. Either way, the mission was complete. Far from the Sol system, Commander O was about to die. His ship, the Vengeful Dawn, had found something terrible, a hidden in deep space, aimed directly at Earth. It was a planet killer, a device that could burn the entire surface clean. They had been building it in secret for 2 years. In 3 days, it would be ready to fire. "We cannot destroy it," his tactical officer said. "It is too heavily shielded. Our weapons cannot penetrate." O studied the readings. She was right. From the outside, the weapon was invincible, but from the inside. "We do not need to destroy it from outside," he said quietly. "We fly into it. We detonate our reactor core in the center of the device." His bridge crew went silent. They understood what he was saying. "Sir, there has to be another way." "There is not." O smiled for the first time in 3 years. "Signal the fleet. Tell them what we found. Tell them what we are doing. And tell General Park." He paused, thinking. "Tell him I died standing." The Vengeful Dawn accelerated toward the defenders. Tried to stop it, but the human ship was too fast, too determined. It punched through the outer defenses and entered the heart of the machine. Commander O thought of his wife. He thought of his children. He thought of the home he would never see again. "For Earth," he said. The reactor core detonated. They vanished in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 systems away. 15,000 died. 300 human crew members died. A world was saved. The news reached General Park in his bunker. He sat down heavily and closed his eyes. Another friend gone. Another sacrifice made. How many more would there be before this was over? Sub-Commander had been watching from a hidden position in a nearby asteroid belt. She had fled the fleet months ago, disgusted by the endless killing, horrified by what her people had become. Now she made a decision that would change everything. She opened a communication channel to the human fleet and transmitted everything she knew: troop positions, defense networks, supply routes, and most importantly, the location of the "I do not want forgiveness," she said in the message. "I only want the killing to stop. Use this information. End the war, please." Admiral received the transmission. She did not trust it. It could be a trap. But the data was too detailed, too specific to be fake. And she was tired of small victories. She wanted the war to end. She forwarded everything to General Park with a single note: "We can reach them now." The general read the information. He studied the maps. He calculated the costs. Then he called a meeting of every senior commander in the human fleet. "For 3 years we have fought to survive," he told them. "Now we fight to end this. They wanted to conquer us. Instead, they taught us how to reach the stars. Their mistake. And we are going to make sure it is their last one." The fleet began preparing for the final assault. The long march was ending. The reckoning was about to begin. 4 years after the burning of Sol, the human fleet arrived at the Admiral looked at the planet through her bridge windows. It was beautiful in a strange way, with purple oceans and continents the color of rust. Billions of lived down there. Cities covered the surface like glowing webs. Ships filled the orbit like a metal cloud. She felt nothing for them. No hatred, no pity, only purpose. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer said. "Signal the fleet. We begin the assault in 1 hour." The Battle of Prime was the largest fight in the history of the galaxy. 5,000 human ships faced 8,000 defenders. The sky above the planet burned with weapons fire as both fleets crashed into each other. Admiral commanded from the center of the battle. She had fought dozens of engagements, but nothing like this. Ships exploded around her. Thousands died every minute. The vacuum of space was filled with wreckage and bodies and the silent screams of the dying. "Break their formation," she ordered. "Target their command ships. Cut off the head and the body will fall. Her captains obeyed. Human vessels moved in coordinated strikes, hitting weak points in the lines. Doctor's weapons tore through enemy shields. The fold drives allowed ships to appear and disappear, striking from unexpected angles. They fought hard. They were defending their home. They were fighting for survival, but they had never faced an enemy like this. They had never faced humans. Colonel Han led the ground invasion. Her drop pods fell through the atmosphere like metal rain, burning through the air defenses. 10,000 orbital drop shock troops hit the surface around the capital city. The streets became a battlefield. Human soldiers fought warriors building by building, room by room. The enemy was bigger and stronger, but the humans were faster and more desperate. They had crossed the stars for this moment. They would not fail. Han kicked open a door and found herself face to face with 3 soldiers. Her rifle came up before she could think. 3 shots, 3 bodies. She stepped over them and kept moving. "Colonel, we have High Commander's position," her sergeant reported. "He is in the central tower." "Then that is where we go." The tower was the tallest building in the capital. It rose like a black needle into the purple sky. Had made it his command center, believing it was safe behind layers of defenders. He was wrong. Han's team fought their way up the tower floor by floor. They lost soldiers on every level. They threw everything they had at the humans. It was not enough. On the top floor, Han found surrounded by his personal guards. The battle was short and brutal. When it ended, only Han and the High Commander were still standing. Looked at her with something she had never seen in eyes before, fear. "Kill me," he said. "End this." Han lowered her weapon. "No, you are going to watch. You are going to see what happens to your empire. And then you are going to tell everyone that this is what happens when you attack humanity." She put him in chains and took him to the window. Below, the city was falling. Human soldiers raised their flags over conquered buildings. Defenders surrendered in growing numbers. The war was ending. Doctor had a different mission. While the battle raged, she led a team to the Planetary Defense Center. Deep beneath the capital, the enemy had a weapon that could destroy everything on the surface, including their own people. They were preparing to use it. "If they fire that weapon, billions die," she told her team. "Human, and we cannot let that happen." They fought through the tunnels below the city. The defenders were desperate, knowing they were protecting the last chance to hurt the humans. But Doctor had not spent 4 years developing weapons to fail now. With 30 seconds to spare, she reached the control room. The operators turned to fight, but her soldiers were faster. The countdown stopped. The weapon went dark. Doctor sat down on the floor and closed her eyes. She thought of her parents. She thought of Seoul. She thought of all the death and pain that had led to this moment. "It is over," she whispered. "It is finally over." General Park walked through the doors of the Imperial Palace as the sun set over the conquered capital. He was 72 years old and exhausted beyond measure, but he had one more thing to do. The Emperor waited in the throne room. He was ancient, his gray skin wrinkled, his 4 arms thin and weak. But his eyes were sharp and he showed no fear. "You have destroyed everything we built," the Emperor said. "Are you satisfied, human?" Park thought of his daughter. He thought of the millions who had died. He thought of the years of war and sacrifice and pain. "No," he said. "I will never be satisfied, but I will settle for this. You will remember us. You will teach your children what happens when you attack a world that did you no harm. And if anyone in this galaxy ever thinks about doing what you did, they will remember too." The Emperor studied him. "You could destroy us, burn our world as we burned yours. Why do you not?" "Because that would make us like you. We are not. We are human. We fight hard. We forgive slowly. We never forget. But we do not destroy entire species." Park stepped closer. "You will sign a surrender. Your empire will be dismantled. The species you conquered will be freed. And your people will live, but they will live knowing that they only exist because we chose mercy." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You are not what we expected," he said quietly. "We thought you would be easy to break. We were wrong." "Yes," General Park said, "you were." The war ended that day. The Empire signed the surrender. Their conquered territories were freed. Their war machine was destroyed. They were allowed to keep there, but nothing else. Sub-Commander, who had betrayed her people to save both species, helped negotiate the peace. She would spend the rest of her life building bridges between and humans. 10 years later, General Park died peacefully in his sleep. He was buried on Earth, next to his daughter. Millions attended the funeral. He was remembered as the man who had refused to surrender, who had turned grief into determination, who had led humanity from the edge of destruction to victory. Admiral became the leader of the Terran Alliance's diplomatic corps. She spent her later years teaching peace instead of war. She never forgot her brother, but she learned to smile again. Colonel Hen trained the next generation of soldiers. She told them stories of the war, not to glorify combat, but to make sure they understood the cost. "Fight only when you must," she would say. "But when you must, fight to win." Doctor led a joint human research initiative. She believed that knowledge should bring species together, not drive them apart. Her work helped rebuild what the war had destroyed. In rebuilt Seoul, a monument stood in the center of the city. It was made of glass and stone and light. People came from across the galaxy to see it. On its surface, in 100 languages, were words that humanity would never forget. "They struck first, we struck last. May no one ever need to strike again." The stars were quiet now, but they remembered. The galaxy remembered, and no one ever attacked Earth again.